This is about to be so freaking hyped because honestly, I have tried to film this video 6 separate times, but I'm just so explosively excited, it's difficult to contain myself, but I'm going to bottle it up because we have to talk about a giant new leak that has happened. What's up gamers, Dreamcastguy here, and just minutes ago, as you could see, this website posted this article 3 seconds ago. That's how on top of the news I try and be. Square Enix has trademarked Ever Crisis, the First Soldier, and the Shinra logo in Japan. Now let's start off by looking at the facts here. Square Enix trademarked all 3 of these in December, and now all 3 trademarks have been made public. Ever Crisis, which is probably talking about Final Fantasy Crisis Core. This is a full-blown prequel that takes place years and years before the events of Final Fantasy VII itself. There's the First Soldier, which seems to be referencing Sephiroth, the main villain of Final Fantasy VII, and Shinra Electric Power Company, which is of course the evil organization of Final Fantasy VII. Now, all of this seems to imply that something big is in the works, but what could it be specifically? Well, I think there's 2 separate directions this may go. First and foremost, I do think that it's possible that we could see a full-blown remastering or a very, very solid remake of Crisis Core itself. Now, this game has always been a little bit controversial because it's much more action-focused. It's goofy, it's just Zack rolling around and hacking things up, and while it has some gorgeous cutscenes, I have seen some people say that it's a little bit of a convoluted mess by current terms. So what if they gave that the remake treatment? What if they cleaned it up, streamlined it, and made it all the better to see and play and to just, oh my god, I'm like losing my mind. A Crisis Core remake would be fantastic, and I hope that's what this is. But the other side of the coin, this might be a hint at what we're going to see in Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2. Now, the reason I say that is because the first part of the Final Fantasy VII Remake, it's left a lot of question marks in the air, because the game's story was so massively expanded, from tons of side quests to additional lore to even just tiny little subplots that never really existed in the original universe. Final Fantasy VII Remake is a different game than the original Final Fantasy VII. The fact that we even spent 25 hours in Midgar is a pretty clear statement about the fact that this is the start of an all-new Final Fantasy VII universe. So what if this is the first implications that maybe Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 is going to have a lot of Zack? What if it has a lot of backstory? What if Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 is Crisis Core? What if we're going back and the entire game is one 20-hour-long flashback giving us all the lore and backstory and complex intricacies that show how Cloud became Cloud? That would be a hefty task indeed. But I'm interested in it. While there has been a lot of war between whether Final Fantasy VII Remake was faithful enough, whether it was a good game or a bad game, I'm certainly interested to see what happens next. This, to me, is only going to be a positive experience, no matter how it comes out. I'm just curious to see what this becomes, but more importantly, I'm curious the product direction. Now, what I mean is that Final Fantasy VII is quite the beast. There are sequel movies, there's an anime called Lost Order, there are Final Fantasy VII books. The major thing that I have been hoping in the Final Fantasy VII works is that they streamline it, that they clean it up. They take a couple of the plot holes and they manage to cement over them. And I want to see what Ever Crisis turns out to be. This may be a great opportunity for Square Enix to show us what the true lore of 7 is going to be going forward. Maybe we'll also get a hint as to how many pieces the Final Fantasy VII Remake is going to be. Originally, I thought it might be a trilogy, but if Ever Crisis is one long flashback, maybe it's going to be 5 games. Maybe it's going to be 8 games. I mean, it's so difficult to tell. This is definitely going to be a 10-year project, no matter how you look at it, but Ever Crisis and the First Soldier is our first major hint of what may be coming soon. Hopefully it's not just some DLC or some crappy cell phone game, because this seems like it could be quite the wild ride. But what do you think about it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already for the latest in Final Fantasy leaks, news, and rumors. I am Dreamcastguy. Thanks for watching, and keep on dreaming. Alright, now that we're done, I can finally scream. I'm going to mute the mic. I'm muting the mic right now so you don't hear me scream. There we go. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.